Hey, this is Ben Solomon, and welcome to this episode of the Techno Leadership Show. In this episode, I am going to be talking about one on ones and how to get the most out of them for the benefit of your team members as well as your benefit and the organization's benefit. Personally, I've found one on ones to be the most effective tools to help build strong relationships, to be able to lead well, and also to be able to help my staff have better outcomes, better fulfillment at work, and really enjoy the work that they're doing and get the results that we were all after. So, what does that mean from a perspective of looking at it? Some people, some IT managers, some tech managers, engineering managers, and other executive leaders tend to not like one-on-ones. And there are technology professionals and engineers who find one-on-ones wasteful. And it's quite likely that the way the one-on-ones are structured and conducted might have some room for improvement. The things that I generally have tended to do is, on a general basis, on a daily basis, we have open, free conversation in the teams, which means when I walk into the office, if anyone's there at the time, I'd be like, hey, how's your day? How's your evening yesterday? What'd you get up to? And, just having that personal connection there. And then the office that we had, we kept it in such a way that there was space for laughter, for banter, for us to be able to just share and have a bit of fun at the same time doing our best work. So everyone is at ease to be able to just be themselves. And if you as a manager or a leader can create that environment where your people feel at ease just on a normal basis, when you go into a one-on-one and when you do the one-on-ones with them in mind for their benefit, ultimately they will, one, find it useful, two, be glad to be part of those one-on-ones. I sometimes feel like I should have done a lot more one-on-ones just because we were so strained in terms of resources that we spend a lot of our time trying to keep up with all the things that we had to do. But at the same time, we treasured the one-on-ones because of the fact that for me as a manager and leader, it gave me the opportunity to have unique insights into each person's life, each person's dreams, so to speak, like even career dreams, and some were even happy to open up about their dreams outside of work that work connects to. So knowing people on that personal level and having that one-on-one conversation usually started with something personal. We just talked about stuff. How are you going? How's family? How's life? What's going on with if I know that they have a specific hobby that they enjoy, or specific game that they're playing recently, or whatever it might be, I might ask them about it. Although I've personally been outside of the gaming space for over a decade now, I still keep in touch with my staff saying, oh, I've found this new game that I'm enjoying. Cool. Can you tell me more about it? Just, keep myself updated. But at the same time, I'm being a listening ear to them as well. Because they may not have too many other people in their lives who really care about, their hobby or stuff that they enjoy. And then I've not been too structured. I've left a bit of free space in my one-on-ones to ask and be open about, is there anything I can do or the business can do to support you in the work that you're doing. And some really good feedback comes from that. Where that doesn't work is if you don't act on the feedback, next time you go into a one-on-one, they're not going to be upfront and open with you. And in my case, look, even if we didn't always get the result that we wanted, I took their feedback very seriously, and I always went up to the level that I needed to go to try and get some aspect of their feedback implemented. And if it was under my care, I did, and my delegation of authority, I did whatever I could to help them get what they need to be able to do the best possible work and also have the best possible outcome for their life, because work and life, they're integrated. I know there's this whole notion of work-life balance and all that sort of thing. That I don't think exists, as much as we might try and do all these, I'm going to cut things off at this point. It doesn't exist in reality. The reality of things, especially in knowledge work, which is technology, engineering, anything that involves us using mental processes, it's a 24/7 thing that your brain's still processing. So you're going to be, doing courses outside of work time. You might be reading books about it. You might be reading about the advances in technology or engineering, and then bring that back into work. So there is that integration aspect there to it. But when you understand what is going on in the lives of your staff outside of work, you then have the capacity to be able to delegate appropriately and create space for them to be able to do their best work at work and have more of leisure time, their time, when they're away from work. And I try to push this as hard as possible to not do actual work when you're at home, out of work hours. Yes, there were times when we, had to take a call from a vendor who was in the US or in the UK, because we worked with Microsoft on various projects. We worked with another company in the UK that provided us with a solution, cloud drive mapping solution that mapped our SharePoint online drives as network drives. So, which all meant we were up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., late at night, midnight or whatever, talking to vendors, doing things. And I understood, each one of us had our responsibilities and each one of us got onto those calls. There were times when, as the tech manager, I got onto the call with one of my staff members who was in charge of the platform and worked with them. But at the same time, knowing that meant when the other opportunities come, I was very happy for them to start later, take a break in the middle of the day if they wanted to, or leave earlier, giving them that flexibility. And if anyone questioned it, I was more than happy to get in and say, look, because they've done this work at that time, I've given them the ability to, go home earlier or come in a bit later. And that, was accepted by the leadership of the organization as well, because they knew that I made sure all the issues that happened that was in my care was taken care of, and I did not let anything go up unnecessarily. It's only a handful, probably three to five issues in the 4 years that I was in that organization that ever I specifically went to someone above me and said, hey, this is above my level of authority to be able to deal with this. This needs your attention. But in most other cases, even if it is something that would normally be the proviso of the director of technology, I was more than happy to take responsibility for it and say, let's do it this way, and I will then work with the director of technology to let them know that this has been handled in this way. And I was in very open conversation with the director of technology at all times. Again, we had our one-on-ones on a weekly, fortnightly basis to see where things are at, where each project was at, which meant I always kept them informed of where things were at. And I also wanted to make sure that they were happy for me to take on some of their responsibilities in dealing with some of the issues, and just letting them know that this is how I've dealt with it, so that they were aware and could handle if any other major things come up. And again, they were more than happy, because that meant I was taking pressure off them and they could do more of their best work in their way. So one-on-ones, again, going in, having that personal bit in the beginning, then getting feedback on, what else can we do to support you sort of factor, and making sure that you act on it is very important. And keep them informed as you're acting on it, so you can sort of say, look, hey, thanks for the feedback in our previous one-to-one. Based on that, I've actually asked for this resource that you thought would be of benefit to you. And leadership has said they will consider it, or whatever it might be. Just keep that communication line open, which helps in your staff members going, you know what, this person actually cares about me, and they're doing everything possible to support me. And then having, one-to-one, again, feedback. My thing always has been, I want open feedback. I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. I stuff up. And, like if you look at my natural personality style, I can come off, not as good as a leader as I should be. So it means that I have to work on myself consistently to be the best possible leader that I could be to my staff, which is why in every one-on-one I wanted feedback. And sometimes even when we're not in one-on-ones, when we've finished a meeting or when we've finished a project, as part of the debrief at the end, look, what feedback do you have for me in how I managed us during this project? Or when we're having one-on-ones, how am I going as a manager, as a leader? Do you have feedback on how I can improve? And look, once there was trust in knowing that I actually took their feedback seriously, and I actually worked on that feedback very seriously, and I was not the kind of person who took their feedback and then held it against them. I never did that. Like, even when I got the most critical feedback, I stepped back and went, okay, and I've been very open and asked the question, yep, thanks for that feedback. Why did you feel like, I did the wrong thing in that situation? And knowing the why for me has helped become a better manager. And knowing that I wasn't going to hold it against them. Initially, they started with small things to see if I was going to hold it against them, which is human nature. You have to build that trust. But once they knew that I was, really wanting feedback, they were happy to give me quality feedback, which continued to help me grow as a leader. And I've been very open with them in giving that feedback back as well when they need to improve on something. And I've been very honest and said, look, this could have been handled this way. In the future, can you make sure that you have these things in place before you do whatever the situation might be? And feedback, always do it one-on-one. Any sort of criticism, any sort of feedback, constructive feedback, you want to look at it that way, give it one-on-one. When you're praising them, do it in front of your team, in front of your business, like in an email or whatever you send to the whole business. Praise the people in your team. So building up people happens in these one-on-ones this way. Get their feedback, help them, with the next stage that they want to get to. Sometimes you might get in one-on-ones, you might get someone saying, look, I don't want to be in this profession anymore, or I don't want to be in this company anymore, I don't want to be in this particular position anymore. And if that is the case, find out what their ideal career, position, company is, and see if you can help them bridge the gap. Sometimes it's skill that they need help with, sometimes it's other things that they need help with. And if you are knowledgeable in the area and understand the area, you can give them guidance. And if you don't, and if you know some resources that could help them, you can point them towards that so that they can get the skills that they need and make the move that they want to make. At the end of the day, true fulfillment comes by actually doing the work that we care about and find meaning in. So if your staff for any reason aren't finding the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis meaningful, then you've got to support them in the process of them finding something that's meaningful, and then finding staff to replace them once they have left on their own. And again, in those sort of circumstances, I've always supported my staff and said, look, if you don't want to be here, that's fine. Make it a 6-month project for you to transition out so that you can build your skills, start applying for roles, and find the role that you want to go into and leave. But while you're here, I also expect you to give 100% in the role that you're in. And I'll support you 100% to help you get to where you want to go. So it was always a mutual relationship, mutually supported them. And if they disclose something that's meant for you, keep it with you. That is an important aspect as well. Building trust. So, and then the final thing that I've always done is the Dan Sullivan question. I mean, Dan Sullivan is the entrepreneurial coach, and one of the questions that he asks in his sort of meeting is, if you and I were having this same conversation 3 years, in his case it was 3 years, I usually asked, if you and I were having this conversation 12 months from now, what should have happened between now and then for you to feel like you've been successful? And that usually brings out some really quality answers and feedback, where you might have your staff member say, well, in 12 months time, I would like to have accomplished this, would have liked to have done this training, or whatever it might be. And then it's on you to find a way to facilitate that, give them the space to be able to do the training if that's part of their thing. If they are wanting to transition roles, supporting them in that, whatever you can do to support them in that outcome is your job as the manager or a leader. Our jobs as managers and leaders is not to micromanage our staff, but to give them the space to do their best work, give them the tools to do their best work, and to unblock the path for them to do their best work. And that a lot of the feedback to be able to allow them to do their best work comes in these one-on-ones, where you can find out what's holding them back, what's their desire, and how you can help them bridge that gap. So hopefully this has given you some framework that you can use in your one-on-ones. It's not the only way to do it. I'm sure different businesses do it differently, and I'm sure there's a lot of resources out there that you can do to improve your one-on-ones, and it's part of your improvement as a manager and as a leader. But these are a few things that you can utilize in your next one-on-one to see how positively you can affect your staff and your team and their morale. So I wish you all the best in your journey as a tech professional, manager, and leader. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button so that you're notified of future episodes as they are released. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you in a future episode.